Yeah, so guys, we have looked almost everything we wanted to cover on JDBC. So before we conclude this, we want to look at transactions. So we know that transactions are by default. When you get a transaction object back to you, it's by default in auto commit mode. So what that means is each individual statement is treated as a separate transaction. So if say this transaction was successful and then this one was not successful, the transaction will ultimately be committed. The first one that ran successfully would be committed. So let me just give you a demonstration of that. We are inserting an employee here. Let's say we are inserting employee. It could be, let's say it's OCP Java 11 45 5,400. Then for this one, I want to intentionally introduce an error in our SQL code. So what is going to happen here is that this SQL statement will be committed. This one will fail and will throw an exception, but it will not roll back this one. So let's just run this code and then see. We don't have this data in our database, just for you guys to see. So if I run this code, we're going to have an exception. Obviously an exception was thrown, but this transaction was inserted into a database for us. So you see that because of the indexing of the primary key, this is put at the first top row. So this is what we mean. The transaction will not roll back because of the failure. Sorry, the SQL statement will not be rolled back because of the failure of the second one, because they are both treated as separate transactions by default. So if you want to have transactionality in JDBC, first of all, you have to set the auto commit to false to say transactions are not committed by default. So if you do this, you will need to explicitly commit your transaction. So if I have this, for instance, xxx, yyyy, and I run this code, the expectation is that I don't have to have any. Okay, let's see what error we are having. Okay, I will remove this. I don't have to have any data into the DB because I didn't commit my transactions. That's the expectation. So let's see. You see nothing is saved. So I have to explicitly commit these transactions for them to appear in the DB. So I'm just gonna run this, and then I have committed them. So it means now they will reflect. As you can see, they are reflecting now because I have committed the transactions. Then you can have a situation whereby let's say one transaction has committed. Let's say this one, you want to make this thing a transaction. This one commits and this one must commit. You want to have what we call atomicity. They must be atomic. Then what you will need to do is, if this one commits and this one fails, then you will have to roll back. So normally you will put a rollback mechanism in an exception or something like that. So you will need to explicitly use the thing to say you want to roll back your statement. So let's do that. So what we want to do now is, KKG, just something that we don't have. So what I want to do is I want to introduce an exception here, and then we have a commit, we have a rollback. So if I run this code, because of the exception of this one, we shouldn't even reach the commit. We will actually come here and roll back. So that means no data will be saved into a DB. You won't see KKJ, you won't see FASA into your database. So we see that on it's even complaining. This one can give it maybe 100 for us to see, to evaluate that, to make it successful. So the first statement was successful, but the second one threw an exception. Therefore, we roll back. So we don't have this data into a database. It's not stored. So if I come here, as you can see, we still have the same data into the database.